The key focus really today is about Scottish companies internationalising and how we can expand on the numbers of Scottish companies in that particular space. Now, our role within Scottish Development International is to assist Scottish companies to internationalise and also to help inward investors come into Scotland and develop their business here in Scotland. So just to give you some context on this, I've actually lived and worked outside of Scotland for the last 10 years and I'm just back, new kid on the block, back in Scotland. What strikes me when I come back to Scotland is the level of world-class capability that we have here in our businesses in Scotland. So I look around this country and I see world-class companies in sectors as diverse as life sciences, food and drink, energy and digital media. Many of them are represented with you here today. We know that there will be global demand for products and services in those spaces over the next few years. I look around Scotland also and I see a real will for continuous development to increase the number of Scottish companies exporting. And I look around and I see future opportunity to showcase our credentials to a world audience by focusing on our key areas of strength and by matching our strengths internationally within the growth markets that are there for the picking. Now, as I said, I've spent the last few years outside of Scotland working mostly across Europe and the Middle East. These are key international markets for Scotland, but they're not the only ones. I've been putting Scotland on the map internationally by telling our story outside of Scotland. So I've been on the outside looking in. My role now is, and the role of my people and teams within SDI, is to put international ambition squarely on the map here within Scotland. So in a pragmatic sense, what can SDI do to help in this particular area? Well, on the international trade side, you may have heard this morning, our objective is to give in-depth assistance to over 900 Scottish companies each year. And that assistance can take a variety of forms for companies. For example, we can deliver strategy workshops to develop companies' business strategy to go international. We can help by accompanying you on market visits through events and exhibitions. We can help you hire senior managers, temporary managers, with international skill sets and experience of working internationally. We can subsidise office space for you. And we can link you into our Global Scot network. Some of you may know about our Global Scots already. This is a network of over 500 senior business people working overseas with an affiliation to Scotland who have agreed to advise companies going international. So that's just a taste of some of the things that we can do. Now, any company can be assisted at whichever stage of the international journey they're on. So we can work with novice exporters all the way up to seasoned campaigners. SDI has got around 220 people working in our 22 offices all over the world and also here in Scotland. So we have, for example, SDI teams in London, in the USA, in Canada, in France, in Germany and in China, just to name but a few. And our locations are important because they represent where we believe are the most important opportunities for trade and investment for Scotland. But more importantly, the knowledge and the expertise that our overseas teams can offer you to help you understand different markets and help accelerate your growth, save you time, save you money, has proven to be of great value to Scottish companies. Where we don't have office locations, because we can't be everywhere, resources are stretched, we also offer assistance through UK trade and investment offices, and they have 150 additional offices all over the world, which covers, if you can imagine, 98% of GDP. So we're able to leverage quite a lot of resource in for Scottish businesses to help them internationalise. Now, how does Scotland stack up currently in terms of exporting? You might have heard a little bit about this morning if you were listening to the CEO of Scottish Enterprise, Lena Wilson. Current best estimates point to around 5,500 businesses in Scotland exporting, 5% of the UK total, so we're still punching below our weight. We could be much braver, we could be much bolder. We could be more brave hearts rather than coward and timorous beasties when it comes to exporting. And And the last couple of years, it's true, have seen tough economic times for everybody. But we're now moving into a phase of economic recovery. And international trade and development, I believe, is without doubt one of the biggest factors that can help accelerate that recovery. So our message is that we want lots more Scottish businesses to view doing business internationally as a given, as part of your business planning, as part of your strategy. It shouldn't be an add-on, it should be integrated within what we do. And why is the reason for this? Well, in world terms, we all know that Scotland is a very small place, 5.2 million people, and it accounts for less than 3/1000 of the world GDP. So if you're not a mathematician, and I'm not a mathematician, if you can imagine that that means that around 99.7% of potential opportunity rests outside of Scotland, then that gives you an idea of the scale of what we're talking about. Now, some companies say that exporting can be tough, that there are lots of barriers. We talk to companies who say that those barriers are, some of them are perceived, some of them are real barriers. Evidence shows, however, that in general, companies do overestimate the risk of exporting and going international, and they underestimate the benefits quite considerably. I believe it's now a time to start to debunk some of those myths around doing business internationally. Because in actual fact, the real risk for many companies is not seeking out new international markets. The real risk is that domestic demand remains very weak here in the UK, and also we're being squeezed by overseas competition coming into Scotland. So the risk is more staying domestic rather than actually exporting internationally. Other companies say to us things like, well, we're too small, or I don't speak any languages, I'm doing fine now as I am, I'm happy with what I've got. But do you know what? The company I was talking to recently, MacColl of Arbroath, was doing fine 10 years ago. They've been making jams and marmalades for 70 years. They were doing great. But then they started to look at the international opportunities. And since then, with the assistance of Scottish Development International, MacColl has seen its business expand from being a 1 million turnover business to an 8.5 million turnover business. They now export to 25 countries all over the world. That's a great example of how an international strategy can transform an established business. And that's why we're encouraging all Scottish companies to think about that and consider new markets rather than risk being left behind. So it doesn't really matter how big you are as a company. You do, however, need to be prepared to export. You need to make sure that you are equipped with the right skills, the right technical expertise to be able to export effectively. Another example is Bar and Raise. Their technology and expertise is based on fluid handling and conditioning. Their company is recognised as a market leader in its two key segment areas of sport and leisure and process and environment. Now, Scottish Development International has been working with Bar and Raise management to assist it develop its key growth markets in the Middle East and in the Far East. The assistance covers a broad range of work, including international strategy development, in-market introductions, and assistance to set up its presence in both Dubai and Hong Kong, where we have our own teams and we have our own local office staff. So it really is all about the skills. We recognise that while many companies may have the desire to start exporting, they might not have the skills and expertise to know where to start. And that's why we've recently launched the new Smart Exporter Initiative, which we're running in partnership with Scottish Chambers International. We're going to have a separate workshop on Smart Exporter Initiative a little bit later on this afternoon, so for those of you who are interested, please take the time out to go check that one out. Smart Exporter is an important collaboration which sees SDI and Scottish Chambers International working together to expand the availability of export support, and our aim is to reach 8,000 companies over the next 3 years. The hope is that this programme will develop the skills base and increase the numbers of companies exporting from Scotland. The expertise of our people, based across our global network of overseas trade and investment offices, is a highly valuable resource for Scottish companies. And together with our Scottish-based teams and the Smart Exporter Initiative, we are using every avenue to deliver even better results for Scottish companies. So I would encourage you all to think about where the risk lies. I would encourage you all to think about looking at new international markets. The opportunity is absolutely out there for the taking. We just need to be a bit bolder, a bit braver, a bit more confident, and take advantage of the world-class capabilities and the enviable reputation that Scotland actually has overseas. So do visit the Scottish Enterprise stand at the exhibition, take advantage of the workshops, and I'd be happy to answer any questions from you afterwards at the end of the session. Thank you very much.